Awesome, awesome. Thank you guys. Thank you everyone for the opportunity. Like Mukaso said, what we're gonna do here is add a custom model to a Ready Player Me avatar and show you how to prepare it, launch it, and actually get to use it inside of your spatial account. Want to give a big shout out to Metaverse Josh that's in the house. He is actually creating a very useful and very in-depth series about how to build inside of the metaverse. So kudos to him and big respect. But without further ado, let's get into the workshop. So right now, the first thing that you're gonna want to do is go into your Ready Player Me account. You're going to land on this page once you get your credentials in. And what we're going to do is once you've created your avatar, you're going to be able to go over here. And as you can see, you're going to get a link to download the avatar as a GLB file. That's the file that we're going to use in Blender to prepare and add the custom model that in this case is the raw bucket hat to the model. So let's go ahead and download the GLB. By the way, I do want to mention if anybody at any point has any types of questions or if I'm going a little bit too fast. I know that there are some people that are following the workshop live. Please give a shout, clap, or do something inside of spatial. I'll have my ears on, but I cannot see the spatial window. So I'll be on the lookout for any cues. So once you've downloaded your avatar, we're gonna go ahead and open up Blender. You're gonna get the splash screen. We're gonna go to the general screen, and this sad little guy that always gets deleted will get deleted as well this time. So a few things before we head on to building the avatar. There are a few limitations to building and uploading avatars. There are two ways to upload your avatars into Spatial through Unity. There's the global avatars and there's the ecosystem. Give a quick preview. So here you can see the actual limitations and the parameters that you need to meet in order to get a global or an ecosystem avatar launched. For the Ready Player Me example, those avatars are pretty optimized, and given the current restrictions that Spatial has for global avatars, we're going to be able to launch the Ready Player Me avatars as a global one. So we're going to be aiming to meet these parameters right now. And on the second part of the workshop, we're gonna be doing a custom avatar. And when I say custom is something that we've created ourselves, which is Haikun. And Haikun is very high poly. It's a very detailed model, so I think it's a pretty good example to really showcase that it's a custom avatar side of Unity and Spatial. Let's go back over to Blender. To be sure that we are inside of parameters, we're gonna go ahead and click on this little arrow right here, and we're gonna enable statistics, and what that's gonna do is give us a breakdown of how many vertices, how many triangles, faces, and edges we have on our scene. So as you remember, this is what where we're gonna be aiming for. 22,500 or less. So let's go ahead and import our GLB. Go ahead and file, import GLB. It'll be, in my case, in my downloads, a recent one. Import. And here we can already see that we have our model. And just so we can see that the textures and everything was imported right, we're gonna go ahead and while the cursor is inside of the main scene, we're going to press the Z key. Now we're going to go ahead and go inside of material preview. This is going to do is enable us to see how the textures have been imported, and we can see that it's all good. The avatar is as it's supposed to be. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to import our custom model. I'm going to go ahead and import again. By the way, what I did right here is I have a few hotkeys. I pressed Q for quick favorites, but let me keep it a little bit more user friendly. We're going to go ahead again. I have downloaded the bucket hat for the first time, so we got the right here. So what I'm doing right now is importing all of the models that I'm going to be using to prepare my avatar. So it's the avatar and the bucket hat. We can see that the scale of the bucket hat is a little bit off, so we're going to press S, and we're going to dial down the cursor until we can get the scale a little bit more or less what we want. So what I'm doing right now is moving the object using my G, my R, and my S keys, which is grab, rotate, and scale. And I do like to go into solid mode again, and we're going to press this little button right here, which is the X-ray mode, and we can actually see where the edges of the bucket hat are, and we can align it a little bit more accurate. I'm going to rotate it a little bit. Here. More. And that should be good. Yeah. I think it's a little bit big. Either way, we do notice that when we go over to the material preview, we don't see the texture that we want to see. So to check that the material is actually being applied, we can go over to the shading tab. We're going to select our model. We can actually see that there's a pattern right here, but evidently it's not showing. We're going to go ahead and do a quick inspection, and we're going to hit F3. I heard a clap, by the way. Does anybody have a question? You good? Okay. So since we do have the texture embedded inside of our model, we're going to go ahead and inspect. We can see that we have the option to unpack the texture. So we're going to go ahead and unpack it, and we're going to use this first option, use file from current directory. We're going to see that we can't do anything because we haven't saved our file. So Blender doesn't really have a relative path to follow. So we're going to go ahead and click Control S. We're going to save this. Our avatar workshop with RAW. I'm going to go ahead and save it. It actually unpacked it, but we're going to still do this. And check the images. We'll get back to that. For the time being, let's just go ahead and hit F3 to inspect a little bit further our bucket hat. This F3 is the search engine inside of Blender, and what we want to do is check for the face orientations to actually see that everything's set up right. So blue faces facing outward mean that the textures are going to be showing as you intend. If it's like the bucket hat right now and you see that it's showing red, those phases are not, the normals are flipped, which means all the materials are not going to be showing on that phase. It's going to be showing on the background. And to fix that is actually quite an easy fix. We're just going to go ahead with our object selected, go over here and tap into edit mode. You're gonna see the mesh, and what we're gonna do is press A to select our whole mesh. We're gonna go over to faces, not miss, no, to mesh. We're gonna go over to normals, and you're gonna see that the hotkeys is Alt N. If anybody wants to just get acquainted with the hotkeys, we're gonna click on flip. And as you can see, that immediately flipped all of our faces, but we still do not be able to see the texture. And that's because we have not unwrapped, or the bucket has not been properly unwrapped. So to do this while still in edit mode, we're gonna go ahead and click UV. We're gonna go and click Smart UV Project. Actually, no, I'm gonna click Unwrap because this is a pretty simple uh, model. And we can immediately see that our texture is shown. So we fix that. Go ahead and go back into object mode. I do notice that the hat itself is just planes. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do something I don't like to work with planes as much as I can. And what I just did is apply. We're gonna go like I realized that I did that a little bit too quick. We're gonna go ahead and give this a little bit of body. Like we're gonna solidify the planes. So we're gonna select our object. We're gonna go to our modifier properties tab over here, the little wrench icon. We're gonna add a modifier and we're gonna add the solidify modifier. And if you didn't notice, that actually gave us a little bit more body. So I'm gonna undo it so you can see the change. With that done, I'm just gonna go ahead and apply it. And we have our bucket hat positioned, but we're not done yet. So we're gonna go ahead and get the bucket hat out of the way for the moment by pressing H to hide the bucket hat, or by going over here to the model tree, to the view layer model tree, and clicking the little eye icon. So once you have all of your models ready, you do want to go ahead and, since Ready Player Me gives you already an armature and their model already set up and rigged and with all of the weights necessary applied, you could just go ahead and export this file as an FBX after preparing all the materials and the submeshes to Unity. And it'll be rigged and it'll recognize that it's a human armature. But I've had models downloaded from Ready Player Me that sometimes don't have the armature properly rigged, and I always, as a rule of thumb, like to verify that the armature is in fact working properly. So to do that, we're gonna go over to layout again to change our view a little bit more comfortable. We're gonna select our armature, and the armature is the skeleton itself. We're gonna go over to the mode selector, and you're gonna see that now we have post mode. So into post mode, we're gonna toggle the X-rays once again. And now we can select the individual bones. And to just check that everything's working fine, just select any bone. I like to do the arms, rotate them, make sure that everything's good, that nothing's slipping too out of the ordinary. Just since the hand, the arms, and the legs are the things that mostly move inside of spatial, you do want to check that everything's working properly. You can see that everything's working good. So once that's done, you can go ahead and get our model, our bucket hat model. Since again, this is a Ready Player Me armature, there are a few details that behave different when attaching models. When comparing to a Mixamo rig, for example, and we're gonna see both because we're gonna do the Ready Player Me approach with this model, and we're gonna do the Mixamo approach with Hyper. When we do when we're working with Ready Player Me, what we want to do is go back while selecting our armature. We're going to go back into post mode, and we're going to check which bone actually commands the rotation and the movement for the heads. And we can actually see over here in our statistics window that when we select this bone, it says that it's the head bone. So that's our goal. We're gonna go ahead while having that bone selected only. We're gonna go ahead and get out of pose mode. We're gonna select our bucket hat. Holding down shift, you're gonna click on the armature and you'll see that the armature now becomes the active object, and you can see that by the orange color in the outline. So we're gonna go back into pose mode with both of those selected, and now, so making sure that the head bone is the one that is selected, we're gonna go and click. We're gonna go ahead and click Control P, and this will open up the Parent 2 window. The difference between the Mixamo and the Ready Player Me rigs comes in this step. So if we were working with a Mixamo rig, and the only thing that you want the bucket hat to do is just to be attached and anchored to the movements, the only thing that you would do is hit the parent to bone, and that would be it. But I actually discovered after a few trials that for the Ready Player Me one, you have to actually parent it with automatic weights. This is a little bit more troublesome in the sense that we have to do an extra step to ensure that none of the other bones of the armature influence the movement of the pad itself. We're gonna go ahead and click with automatic weights because we are working with a Ready Player Me avatar. You're not gonna see anything fancy happen, but once we go out of pose mode into object mode again, we can select our bucket hat, and we're going to go over here to our object data properties. We can see that it has created, and I know that we didn't look at this before creating all the groups. The bucket hat vertex groups were empty. Once we parented to the armature with automatic weights, it created all of these vertex groups that related to the armature. But we don't want any of these that don't have to do with the head to influence our bucket hat. And I can actually go ahead and show you what I mean by that by going back into pose mode. So right now, if I select the eye bone, for example, we can see that part of the hat only actually moving. And that's because when you parent with automatic weights, it'll actually parent all of the bones to the hat and uh, it'll give each bone a degree of influence over the hat based on the distance or the relation it has with the other bones around. So we only want it to be able to move with the head bone, maybe the neck bone, because when you flex, like move your neck, you also move your head. But we don't want any of the other bones. So these are the bones that we have to aim to keep. We're gonna see that this is the head, top, and bone, both of the eyes, the right eye, the left eye, the head bone, and the neck bone. Let's go over to object mode again. We're gonna go over to our bucket hat, and we are going to individually look for each of those bones that we mentioned, because we can't actually, or at least I haven't found a way to group select a few of the vertex groups. So let's go ahead and look for the neck bone first for me, and we're gonna go and pin all of those to the top by moving them with these arrows. So we're gonna put the neck top, head well, the head top and we got the left eye, and now we got the right eye. So these are the 5 bones that we want to keep, and we want to delete each and every one of the other ones. So we're going to go to the end of the list. We're going to select the last one. We're going to keep pushing the minus button until we reach the other 5. So just keep pressing that. But do be careful because you can Like you can lose yourself just by clicking and end up like erasing all of the other ones, but you can just hit undo. Okay, so now we're here. We got the spine one and the spine and the hips. But now we don't have anything else that's not part of the head related to the hat. We can actually go ahead and check by going again into pose mode by selecting the armature, pose mode, and nothing should be able to move our hat. Instead, that's not connected to the neck. It's obviously these will move the entire body because these are the main bones, but they do not deform the hat in any unwanted ways. So we have that ready. We can go ahead and get out of pose mode. And as I did mention, we're gonna go ahead and launch this as a global avatar. And right now we do need for almost all of the parameters, but there's one that we don't. And this is actually something that I came across with while preparing for the workshop. So when you go ahead and click on the model, for some reason, this one doesn't give me the thing that I wanted to do. Yeah. So when you go over to the model, probably I complicated this for myself last time, but if you do happen to have your model with a lot of different textures and a lot of different bodies all individually and not mashed together like this, you will probably end up with a bunch of different materials over here. And for global avatars, we do see that the submeshes are limited to 4. The first time I did the workshop, I do remember that I had a lot of different materials, and I do not know why I now have only one. But we can go. I can actually try to make them all up because I did want it to show how you can combine different textures into one. But let me see. Let me just save this up until now and go ahead and select my model. I want to go ahead and go to by the way, do not follow me on this part right now. I'm going to test something out. Up until this point, you are already, you can already export this and we can go ahead into Unity. I do want to check something out first. Go over to external data and unpack this. Now, fortunately, we were blessed that this avatar was already unified with all the textures. So what we can go ahead now and do is we're gonna go, actually we're gonna do what I did, but just to make sure that we have our textures ready for Unity, we can go and select our avatar. You can see that it's selected with the orange outline. We're gonna go ahead and go over to files, external data, and this is a step I like to do to ensure that I have my textures readily available for me in my file explorer. So we're gonna go ahead and pack the resources. And you can see that it packed 5 files. So going over to external data again, pack them, and use the files in current directory. And now we can go over to our folder, and we can see that the textures for our avatar have been broken down and are available for us to use. Now that we have all of that, we still don't see the texture for the bucket hat, right? Gotta get that one. We're gonna go ahead and do the same process, and it should yield us the texture. Pack it. Unpack it. Sorry about that. It should have given us. I do not see it. But if you don't see it after doing this, you can just go ahead over and head over to the material and see in your texture editor the picture itself. Go over to these three lines and save the texture just to be safe. Save it as a JPEG image. And now we have it. Now we have everything ready. We have our avatar with less than 4 submissions or materials. It's only 2 bodies. Our statistics show that we're well beyond lowered by lower on the limit for the vertices. So now we can go ahead. We're gonna select our avatar, select our model, and select our armature. Go over to File, export it. I'm gonna export it as an FBX. We're gonna do an FBX because that's Unity's best way of recognizing models. In the path mode, you're gonna want to put it in copy, and you're gonna check this little box right here. Since we only want the objects that we've selected to be exported, go ahead and click Select Objects and specify that it's the armature and the meshes. Next, you can leave the transforms as they are. We're going to go over to geometry and the smoothing. We're going to select face and we can leave the others as is. Right now, we don't have any animations, so we shouldn't worry much. You shouldn't worry that much about it. And we're going to call this LF for light engineers and custom. Go ahead. We're just saving it into our avatar workshop files. We're going to export this. Now we're going to go ahead and open up Unity Hub. So the way I like to go about doing different builds inside of Unity Hub and to keep working with a clean slate of the spatial starter template is that I actually have the starter template blank readily available to just copy and paste it inside of my Unity builds folder. And I just rename the copy starter template to the name that I'm working on right now, and that's the one that I'm gonna open. And if I do something wrong, for example, or something goes like not planned, I can always delete that and start over with fresh build. So I already did that with the avatar workshop one I have right here. So we are going to open up avatar workshop file. So every time that you create a new file on your build folder, you have to open it by going over here to open on the drop down arrow, add from project, and there you will see your project folder. Just click on the folder and add project. It should appear in your Unity Hub list. So right now, Spatial's latest stable Unity build is the 2021.3.21 F1. Ooh, that was an output. And I do recommend that you are building in this one if you can. If not, you can just use the first one that they had, which is the 0.8 F1. Go and open up Avatar Workshop. While this opens up, I do want to go back to the spatial space and ask if anybody is is everybody okay? Does anybody have any questions? Good. Heard a few claps. I don't know. Okay. So this is still opening. Let's go.
Just a
Yeah.
question.
Shoot.
What would happen if we skip the step in which we attach the hat or the wearable with the head? Does the wearable float over our head or what happens?
Yes. Actually, there was a question in the chat from Pedro.
Let me see. What
And it
happens if we skip this
says,
step?
what happens if we skip this step? And I
So what step were you referring to, Pedro? So if you don't parent the actual bucket hat to your armature, to the skeleton, it'll show up on your export, but it won't move with you once you test it out. And if it does move, it'll just like it'll keep floating over the avatar reference itself. It won't go with the head movement. I don't know if that was the step that you were referring to. Awesome, super,
Yeah, thank you.
awesome. But by the way, did you manage to get that step in, or did you, or were you stuck?
Oh yeah, I will try this later. It's like I'm just like
Okay,
nodding on my
okay,
notebook. Yeah.
awesome. If anybody else has any more questions, do let me know. And Lucaso, you are good. Wow. Okay, I see that this has already opened. One of the first things that you should do every time that you open the starter template or any of your builds is to check if you have the latest version. If you don't have it, it'll most likely prompt you to, like it's doing right now, to upgrade to the latest version. And in that case, you just like press yes, let the SDK do its thing. Most of the times, there you go. Wait. So this actually doesn't look anything like you would get if you open up a new scene. So I just this move this. So when you actually first open up the starter template, you're gonna see something like this. You won't see this sky, it'll be gray, but it'll be empty. And like I said, the first thing that you want to do is check that you have the latest build. If it doesn't prompt you, you can always go ahead and go over here to the top, spatial SDK, check for updates, and you can see that in this case, we're already up to date. Once you have all of it up to date, let's go ahead and set up the windows that we're going to be using to launch our avatar. So those would be the hierarchy, the project one that we have already here, the inspector, which is something that we're always going to be using when working with Unity. And to get the spatial portal window, we go ahead and click on spatial. Any of these will do because it'll prompt the spatial portal tab to open. And we can go ahead and drag it, set it up over here so it's not in the way. So this is where you would link your account, configure your projects, check if you have any issues, or if you're building a game, here you would assign and create all of your badges. So if this is your first time working with the Unity SDK, you're gonna want to go ahead and go to your spatial account. Go ahead and go over to spatial.io. Once you're logged in, you're gonna click on your PFP picture right here, and you're gonna see that there's a tab for Creato Toolkit account. Go ahead and click that, and you can copy the access token that you need to your clipboard. Click copy to clipboard, go back to your Unity editor window, and here you're gonna just paste the login token that you copied. You can press it just once, it'll not prompt anything, it'll not tell you that you pasted it, but you have pasted it. So let's go over. Once you have all of this set up, I do like to build with a little bit of reference in my world. So I will go over to examples. And the spatial actually includes a variety of different examples for you to start your build off of. So you can have a simple build, you can have a visual scripting example build, a vehicle, and a lot more others. The one that we're going to be using right now is the spatial island one because it's a pretty simple build. So what we want to do, we're going to go over to the scenes. This little icon right here is the button that has everything about your scene, every information about your scene stored. So we're gonna go ahead and double click it, and that we can see in the hierarchy that all of our scene elements were loaded. We don't see it because I have it unchecked, but now we can go and see our. These are the first avatars that we did for the first work item. So this is how it'll look once you load your scene. We're gonna go ahead and go over to models. We're gonna create a folder right here to house our custom avatar. So this is LF custom avatar workshop. I heard a clap. Everybody okay? We're good? Awesome. So once you have your folder created, we're gonna go ahead, click on it. We are going to drag and drop the FBX file that we created from Blender. So the one that I created was this one, LF avatar. Drag it over to Unity. It'll think for a moment while it's importing the object. There we can see that we already have it. We're going to go ahead and click on it. We're not going to drag it into our scene yet because we first want to go to our inspector window and be sure of a few settings, a few import settings for the avatar. So one of the main parameters for avatars inside of spatial is that they need to be humanoid. Obviously, we do have a humanoid rig, and we can actually let Unity know that it's a humanoid rig by going into the animation type under the rigging tab of the import settings. Going to click humanoid. We're going to leave the avatar definition as create from this model, and we're going to hit apply. Going to think for a bit, and it should give you a little check mark over here. If by any chance you don't have a check mark and you have some type of warning message or an error message, be sure to go over to your Blender settings first. Do verify that you have exported your armature along with your mesh because that's something that can be easily overlooked. And if you don't have your armature, obviously the Unity can take a humanoid rig from the character that you're giving it to. So if all of this went well, we can now go ahead and head over to the materials tab. And we're going to first extract our textures. And we're going to specify that it drops the textures in our folder. And you should see the textures right here. There we go. Sometimes normal map settings can be a little different in Unity, but it's an easy fix. You can just click and fix now. So now we have all of the textures that our avatar needs to look as intended. But to actually apply the textures, we gotta extract the materials first. So after you extracted the textures, go ahead and extract the materials to the same folder. And if we're lucky, since the materials and the textures have already been done inside of Blender, once we extract all of the necessary dependencies of textures and materials, the model should have applied them. I think we were that lucky. After you have extracted all layers and textures, click on your model and drag it over to the hierarchy and drop it. You can see that we have created our avatar object. To focus on it while still selecting the avatar, go ahead and click the F key and you can centralize. So right now we do see that all the texture is imported well, a little bit too shiny. So since we have extracted the materials, that's something that we can go ahead and modify. Go ahead and click your materials or click on your model that's on the model itself until the editor shows your material. Send it, and we're gonna, for this case, we're gonna change the roughness. We're gonna drop it a little bit. That's a whole lot better. We got the avatar materials set up. We're gonna do the same for our bucket hat while selecting it, pressing F, see it a little bit better. Just for safe measures, maybe give it a 0.3 so it's not that shiny. Oh, one thing that I did forget to do, and this is just like a pre-check kind of thing before doing all of the material work, to actually verify that we have successfully parented our bucket hat. We can click on our project window, our avatar model, in the RIP tab, we're gonna go and ahead and click configure, and that will prompt the Unity armature editor. I think the avatar configuration, and we're gonna go ahead and select the headphones, select the head one, and we're gonna rotate it by selecting the rotate tool right here. And we can see that it actually is recognizing the parent successfully. So we can go ahead and click Control Z to undo that. Go ahead and click Done. And click Revert because we did not do anything that we want to, any change that we want to apply. And with that taken care of, we can go ahead and click on the avatar's first layer object, right, or the higher level object, right. You can see that there is the armature, the bucket hat, and the avatar, and there's a parent object. We're gonna be clicking the parent object. We're gonna add a component to it in our inspector window. I'm gonna go ahead and type spatial, and we can see all of the components that spatial currently has available for us to work with. With this, we're gonna be using the avatar one, spatial avatar. You can go ahead and set the animation the default animation type. And here you can actually override any of the default animations of the spatial avatars. This is an entire whole video for next time, but with this we can actually go ahead and launch our avatars. Once we have that component set up, we need to create a prefab. And that prefab is what's going to be uploaded to Spatial to get the avatar that we want. To do that, we're going to click our avatar object. We're going to drag it over to our folder. And on the pop-up that we get, we're going to go ahead and click on prefab variant. Once you do this, you're going to see another instance of the avatar pop-up, but it's different from the original one. The original one has a breakdown of all the components that it has, and the prefab is just a prefab like a compendium of all the things inside that a little group. So not once we have that, we can go over to the spatial portal. We are going to be creating an avatar, so we need to create a new. We're going to click here to drop it down, a new avatar. We're going to click create. You can see that the default name is avatar underscore 3 of this case. It could be 1 in your case. I'm gonna go ahead and give it a custom lightning bucket hat. That's the name of our avatar. The prefab, this prefab field is where we're gonna drop the prefab that we created by dragging the object from the hierarchy. So we're gonna drag this over to the prefab field, recognized it. This is a global avatar. We can go ahead and say that it's a human maybe. And for the thumbnail is actually necessary for when you're gonna be uploading. You don't have to test it. You don't have to have a thumbnail to test it. So we're gonna just go and make sure that everything is working okay. So to test it, you have to click on test active package. But the first thing that we're gonna do is, so remember the browser where you logged into spatial and got your login token. You're gonna make sure that you have that one, like that browser itself, open, so that the sandbox can actually load on a browser that has your spatial information already logged in. If you don't do this, it'll possibly give you a couple of errors, or not, or upload a sandbox that it's not what you have currently on your. Close this one, and we're gonna test the active package. You can see that it's hiding everything in order to upload it. There it goes. For safe measures, gonna keep this one open. And what we should see next is the avatar, like with the bucket hat, all ready to go. So everybody cross your fingers. Uh, is everybody doing good up until this point? There we go. We can see that the avatar is ready, locked, and loaded with custom bucket hat from RAW. No clipping, no issues, everything's working good. I always like to do all crazy, like exotic kind of dances to see a little break, but right now it's working as it should. So if everything's worked up until this point, you should have successfully launched your Ready Player Me avatar in Unity with the RAW bucket hat attached to it. Uh, so this actually is the no, it's not the end because we are still testing. Almost forgot. So now that you have confirmed that everything's working as it should, go ahead and close your sandbox. We need to now get the thumbnail, which is actually something pretty easy that you can do. You can maybe get the snipping tool, or like if you were already working on in Blender, you just set up the camera and just like put it into view. Let me do that real quick. Let me just put it into view. So one thing that you do have to make sure is that, actually don't remember the dimensions. Let me just check real quick. Yeah. So one of the other requirements is that the thumbnail that you use needs to be 256 by 256, and it has to have transparency. So in order to do that, or I don't actually remember if it has to have transparency for sure, or if that was another type of build, but I always use transparency just to be sure. So if you're working in Blender, you can just go ahead and in the output properties, align your camera, select both of them, and type 256. There you have square resolution that's needed. To give it transparency, go over to your render properties, and when you're using Eevee, go scroll down, go over to film, and check the little box that says transparent. You should see, you should actually see this is we have transparent enabled. Do make sure that the PNG is set as an output and that you have RGBA so that the alpha channel is recognized. Select the folder that you're working on as a destination folder. Input the name so it's easy to find. And then you can go ahead, click on render and render image. You can actually see over here that we have the image with the transparent background. Yeah, ouch. I forgot to save it. So go to render again, render the image. And once the image render pop-up window has popped up, you can go ahead and click here on image, and you're gonna save that image. I was mistaken because the first path that we were defining was if we were actually rendering a video or something. Here we can save the image. Now you should see the image custom avatar thumbnail 1 saved. We can close the render window. I always like to save this. Go ahead and drag that same image over to your project window. And we're gonna click it. And we gotta specify that the alpha is transparency. So in the same manner that we define the import settings for our avatar, we're gonna click our picture in the inspector. We're gonna click alpha is transparency, and we're gonna apply. And now we can see that the picture has transparency applied to it. We can go over to our spatial portal, drag this picture over here. We can go over to issues to do a last check that everything is good. We are good to go with our active package, which is the avatar named Lightning Bucket Hat, and that is in fact the one that we are trying to publish. And we can go ahead and publish it. Go ahead, continue. If it's the first time you're using the SDK, you may be prompted another window about the spatial guidelines that if you're abiding or not by them. Click that you are because we are, and you should be able to see the upload complete. And once that is complete, now we have finished launching the custom avatar from very clearly through the Unity SDK. You should give it about like maybe 10 minutes for spatial to process it, and you should see it over here. Over to spatial. And every new avatar that you actually create should give you the option to change right in your UI. Oh, funny bit right there. Let me just go to my home. I don't know what I'm complicating it. Let me invite you to my home. Oh, so chock full of test objects. So once you're inside of your profile, you can go ahead, click your little profile picture, edit avatar, and all of your custom avatars should appear right here. And we can actually see that the new one that we launched is in its way, still processing. But once you have it over here, you can just go ahead like click on any one that you want and save it, and that should be your preset avatar for the time being. But with that, we have successfully completed the first part. Does anybody have any questions? Does anybody have feedback that you want to say? No. What do you guys think of the workshop so far? Awesome. So now that we have that nailed down, everybody here knows how to import and launch a Ready Player Me avatar through Unity with the Unity SDK from Spatial. I do want to now move ahead and do the
Link my
same.
phone.
What? Okay. So
So
I
far,
do want to go ahead and
you make it seem really easy. This is my first time.
pause. But were you able to follow it? Like, did you launch it, or are you gonna see it later? Anyways, so like I was saying, I do want to now move on to recreating the same process, but with this little guy that you see right here, Haiku. And I want to do this because it's gonna be a rather different process because Ready for
I
Me
wasn't
already
able to
have.
launch it yet, but I have started it and I have it placed on my avatar. I just want to make sure I have it connected all right because I missed a few steps there.
Awesome. Like when we do finish the, yeah, I think there is a super delay. Yeah. But when we do finish the this part of the workshop, I can stay with you and make sure that you can launch it finally through Unity at the end. No problem with that. And anybody that wants to stay after can like get that after hours workshop too. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into preparing Haiku. Yeah, could be that. Could be that. So you can go. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and save this. I'm going to open a whole new window. So now that we have our new window ready, go ahead and forsake the full cube once more. First thing that we want to do is get our all of our files necessary for our avatar to be what it is. So for Haiku, that's gonna be the body. And by the way, I am gonna go a little bit more, a little bit faster on this part, using my hotkeys and using a few different shortcuts I already like have set up. So if anybody that's following does well have a question or like get stuck at some point, or if you only have like just a question, you can go ahead and let me know. So I have the body right here for Haiku. And just get the head. Here we have its head. And the other parts that we need are, of course, the tail, because you can't have a raccoon without its signature and mask. And this Haiku is a little bit more sophisticated, so he does have a few outfits. We're gonna go ahead and do like I want a jacket. I'm actually gonna do the same one that I did the first time around. So it was a jacket. I think it was the sleeveless one. He's looking dapper already. So Now we just need some pans. Oh, there we go. So I have my model ready. Let's go ahead and see how we are doing on our statistics. And we can clearly see that this is way above global parameters. But it is close to ecosystem. But I always like to optimize the models as much as I can, because if there are going to be multiple people using my high poly avatar, my highly detailed avatar, there's a good chance that the space that we're on or in, sorry, could crash. So that's why you always want to make sure that even though the limits are way up here, that you're not way up there. So we're going to decimate this model. And to do that in Blender is actually pretty easy, but there is a downside to this. Highly detailed avatars can be decimated up to a point where they start to deform and actually lose a lot of the shapes and details that you might want to keep. For example, we're gonna see an example of that with Haikun and a few different parts of his body. But this ultimately becomes a process to see how much you are actually willing to sacrifice for your avatar. If you don't already have an optimized model like retopologized or something, that's something that we still don't have. So we resort to decimating it, which still works. The one that you're seeing given the workshop right now is a decimated one, and it still looks pretty close to what you're seeing on the screen right here, which is hypothesis. Let's get to it. I always like to pair parts of the body that go together. So the tail stripes and the tail will be one body for now. And actually, before that, I will go ahead and decimate everything that I can. So while it's individually grouped, like while it's in individual parts. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on my ears first, go over to the modifiers, and we're gonna select the decimate modifier. An alternative approach that you could take to reducing the number of vertices in your model is to actually not use modifiers and go over to edit mode. And once you have the whole mesh selected or the pieces of mesh that you want to decimate or use, you can click on the letter M, and this will prompt a little menu that says merge. And this will merge the vertices at either the center, the cursor, collapse them, or by distance. If you do any of these three, you will collapse the entire model because it'll merge all of the vertices into one point. If you choose by distance, over here at the bottom, you're able to see that it removed two vertices by going this distance. And if you play a little bit with the dial, you can see how many vertices on the bottom it keeps removing, but at the sake of details and actual geometry of your model. So that's, I do play with it a little bit, but it's not something that it's my go-to. Since the models that I have are not that much, that high poly with a bit of decimation, it's more than enough. So we are going to go the decimation route. And to do this a little bit more simpler, we can select our object and we're going to hit the backslash, the forward backslash key, and that will isolate our model. And it actually isolates it to the point that it's giving us the individual vertices of that model. This is actually pretty handy if you want to decimate some parts more than others in order to compensate and balance and give more details to another part of the model. So this actually kind of becomes a trial and error kind of thing. So you just input different settings, different ratios by how much you want to decimate it. I almost have Icon down to a T with the values. So let me see if I can. So we can see that I reduced it by almost 100%. I decimated it almost by 100%, if you will. The vertices went down from 16,000 to 1,000 and some, and we still retained most of the original geometry. So if you didn't see that, I'm just gonna go ahead and undo. This is a high poly model with 16,000, and this is only 0.1 or 10% of that of those vertices, more or less. So I'm actually pretty happy with that one. We're not gonna apply this because we do want to later balance the whole model out. So we're just gonna go ahead and exit isolation mode by hitting the forward backslash key again. I'm gonna select the head, forward backslash again, up from wrong modifier, decimate. So this is actually pretty good too. So if you didn't see it, this is high poly, this is low poly. This is decimated. Sorry, not low poly, decimated. And, sorry. And we can see that we went from all the way almost to 9,000 to barely 1,000. So that's pretty good. Super cool. And I'm actually gonna give it a little bit more detail. Just again, I'm just gonna go a little bit more faster through these because it's actually the same process all out. This one. So there, you're gonna be able to see that some models, if they're spherical or circular or something around it, you can get away with almost completely decimating it, and it'll still hold the shape. These are the pupils. Decimate. Keep decimating. Keep decimating. Nope, too much. There you go. Little nose. Nope. So yeah, this is too much. This is good. We have the head, the mask, the eyeballs, the pupils, the ears. We have all of the head decimated. We're gonna go ahead and do the body. So we have 25,000, and I'm actually happy with this. From 25 to 2,000. That's pretty good. This. Next thing that we want to do is do the tail. Decimate the tail. One. I don't like all those striations right there. That's how many bricks? That's a little bit better. Okay, so a quick checkpoint after we have decimated almost the entire body. We can now select it, isolate it, just to be sure that we're not reading any more models inside of our scene. Isolate it. We isolate it with the forward backslash, and we are at 59,000 vertices and almost 120 triangles. So checking back, we are still a little ways past the global one, so we can't use this one as a global avatar, but we can use it effectively as an ecosystem. What we want to do right now, I have everything all decimated, all grouped. I do like I said before, to group all of the head objects in one. And this you gotta be careful with because once you actually join everything, if you have not applied your modifiers, it'll apply the modifier that's attached to the active object. So for example, on the mask, I have it to a ratio of zero point 0.1. But if I merge all of these, including the mask, and I choose to merge it all to the head, it'll automatically default to a zero point 0.2 ratio, which is the one that the head has. So you wanna make sure that you apply your modifiers to maintain the low vertices count. Nose, head. So we have applied all of our head modifiers. I'm gonna go ahead and head box, select the other ones, and I'm gonna go ahead and click Control and J. That'll join all of our meshes together. Now you can see that the head is a unified mesh. You do. One thing that I have noticed is that whenever you do decimate clothes, it can be a little troublesome when you get to the rigging part. So if you can estimate all of the other models before the clove and get to the desired level, I recommend that you do it. And you're maybe gonna see why soon. If not, I will tell you why when we are. One thing that we are actually missing are materials and the actual skeletons. We are going to apply our materials first, just for safe measure. Let me go ahead and eliminate everything from this. And sorry about that. And make sure that the other one have it as well. I already have a few textures picked for Haiku, so I'm just gonna go ahead and go a little bit fast through them. But the gist of it is, oh wait, I forgot to do. Let's apply on scale. Whenever you do want to apply materials to your avatars, you will go ahead and select the model or the piece that you want to texture. Go into the shading tabs, and here you're going to see your shader editor, and you're actually going to see this. You're probably going to see nothing and a little button that says new. You're going to go ahead and click new, and it'll create a whole new material. The base color here, you can change the color and everything, the roughness, the metallic aspect of it. But what I want to do is actually import an image texture so that I can recreate the fur for Haikun. To do that, I gotta go over to. I have it somewhere. Wait. I have my normal texture right here. Go ahead and plug it into my normal. I do need a normal map for it to show. And I want to give it a good gray color. I'm going to do a few more settings over here. And as you can see, you can't actually notice the fur yet. And that's because, like what happened with the bucket hat, we haven't really unwrapped the model itself. So we're going to go into edit mode. We're going to select our whole mesh. And I'm actually going to select something specific. I want to color the head, the ears, and nothing else with a gray fur. So I'm gonna unwrap that first. These are some default settings that I always like to work with. And we can actually see a little bit of the fur right now. So we gotta change that real quick. We gotta modify our UV map that we just created. And for that, you can head over to your UV editor tab over at the top. I do like to not show the overlays over here once I know I have selected the correct mesh, just so I can see live how the material is affecting, is behaving. You're gonna see that right now. So I want to actually make the pattern a little bit more, a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna go ahead and click A to select all of my meshes. I'm gonna scale that up, and I can actually see how the fur now looks a little bit more realistic. Now that we have that, for some reason I am seeing something iffy. I think it's this. Give me a second, guys. I want to make sure that this is correctly set up. So what I'm trying to figure out is why I have those patches. It's not supposed to be shown. Yep, there we go. I just had to change a few settings. Up, here we go. A little bit darker actually. Sorry for the little rabbit hole. And now go ahead and select the mask, because the mask is actually going to be the same fur material, but it's going to be dark. It's going to be black. That. We'll do a new material. Or using the last one as a template. I'm going to select my mask and I'm going to assign it to that. Up. Change the color over to black, and I still have to unwrap as I did with the head. Now we can see the fur a little bit better now. Go over here. This is the same process that we did for the head. And that's good. I'm happy with that. So now we have successfully applied our fur texture to the mask and to the head. We do the same thing to the body. We're gonna just select our body and select our head. I'm gonna press Control L and link the materials. I do want to make sure that I eliminate this material because I'm not using the black material on the body. Go. Now for the body, we only have the gray fur. Now we have to unwrap it as we did with the other one. I heard clapping. Right? Is everybody okay? Good. Yeah. So once you have your body selected, we're gonna do the same thing that we did that we did with the head and the mask. We're gonna want UV project. Let's look let's see how it's looking. We're gonna isolate it to have a better view. We're gonna scale that up all the way until we have the scale that we want. Something like that. Awesome. So we have the body set up. We gotta get the eyes though. So to get the eyes, I'm gonna select them. I'm gonna create a new material, assign them to that material, and to assign them, you have to have them selected in edit mode. And we're now gonna darken that. Identify that this is the pupil. I know for a fact that this is the mask. I know this is the body material. Oh, wait. Here. Body material. Hey, body material. Thank you. So now that you have that, we have to also get the eyeballs. Because as you might remember, this little guy's name is Haikun. It's not for nothing. He is a high raccoon. Gotta properly highlight that. Oh, I actually forgot something really important that actually ties the whole look together, and it'll take me to oh, much better. Materials. Oh. Join these. I want to UV unwrap them as well. Same procedure. And I do recommend that you modify your UV maps and how the textures are scaled and everything in your UV editor directly. And this is because I've had trouble exporting textures that I have scaled on my own by using the texture coordinate map node in Blender. So there are a few materials that you might get from the internet that already have ways for you to control all of the materials and textures from inside of your shader, but that will not necessarily translate to your mesh once you upload it into Unity. So just be wary of that. That's why I always like to go into the UV editor itself. So the only thing that I'm missing is the nose, which I'm gonna assign the same material as the pupils. And there we go. Let me just give him a quick red jacket. It's maybe some long pants, black pants. And we will leave the shirt black. I'm not opposed to that. This is like this. I'm just inputting some quick material settings. So I am ignoring the tail for now because the next step is to actually get the model rig. And for that, we don't need the tail. So we're gonna hide the tail. We're gonna export this whole model. And wait. Another thing that I want to do is to actually prevent any type of weights drifting around. I'm gonna join all of the clothes to the body. Gotta apply this to the body first so that the cloth won't get the decimation as well. And now we can parent everything to the body. There we go. Let's just give a quick check once more. We are at 61,000. And with the tail, 72. Awesome. So you might have noticed a spike there. It's because of the eyelids as well. So I forgot to actually decimate them, but it's not that big of a leap, so I think we can get away with it. Let's hide the tail. Go ahead and export our model, and we're gonna export it as an object. And this is to upload the model to Mixamo to get the auto rigging process started. So in the export window, since we have already selected what we want to export, go ahead and specify selected only. We have applied our modifiers, but this will still apply them nonetheless. And give it a name. This is Tycoon Workshop. And I always like to specify that this is the Mixamo object. Save it in our workshop files. I'm gonna export it. We're gonna go over to Mixamo, which I highly recommend if you have no experience rigging and just wanna like get some quick avatar like going. It's pretty cool. It's pretty powerful. I've actually done a few animations. I've rendered a few animations, stitching together a few of the default animations that they have. So it's pretty useful. And for launching avatars inside the spatial, really, really useful. This is your main screen. As you can see, I already had like another haiku uploaded, but we're gonna upload our character. Let's go ahead and look for our workshop files, and it's haiku workshop mix. Yeah. Be sure not to get the mixed material. But I think that you can actually upload both in a zip and it'll get your materials uploaded as well. But I haven't had any success with that, so that's why I always prepare my models in Blender before, because the only thing that I gotta do after I get them from Mixamo is link the materials and everything will be as it was. You'll see later on. So we're gonna go ahead and open our file. It'll upload in a moment, and this will prompt us to having the like placing some markers in our avatar to identify the elbows, the wrists, the knees, for example. And after we do that, the auto rigger will do its thing. So you can see that we have a little diagram on our right side as well. So you just go ahead and one by one place the markers as best as you can. I do recommend that you use the symmetry option because that way you only have to get one and the other will follow as well. This is the elbows. Gonna get the knees and the groin, which is so since my avatar, this avatar doesn't use any fingers, I'm going to specify that it doesn't have any fingers, and it'll simplify a little bit more the resulting rig. So just click next and wait for it to actually rig. I do want to take this opportunity to hop into Spatial again and see if anybody has any questions about the process. I do realize that I'm going a little bit faster. I'm skipping a few steps maybe. Uh, do shout if you have any questions, and I'm happy to answer any. This is still rigging. Okay. Sometimes, depending on the character, it'll take a little bit more, a little bit less. So just bear with it. There we go. Now we can see our haiku is moving. We go ahead and click next. You're gonna have it here ready to apply any of these animations that are readily available for you. Obviously, since Haikun is not a fully humanoid human, yeah, full humanoid human model, well, you can actually see a little bit of clipping over the knees, something like that, but it's really minor details. That the rig still works. What we're gonna do is eliminate, delete any animations that you might have clicked over here. Download your character, and you're gonna make sure that you're downloading an FBX binary and in T-pose. Go ahead and download that. Now that that's downloaded, go back here to our Blender window. I'm gonna get this guy to the side right here. I'm gonna go ahead and import the FBX that we have just downloaded. Import it, leaving the default settings as is. It may import really, really tiny, but that's just because maybe the scale was a little bit off on the original model and we had not applied it. I think it was the case on ours. I forgot to apply it. But the only thing that you got to do is click the letter N on the keyboard, go to the items tab right here, which should be the top one if I'm not mistaken, and you can see that the scale is actually really, really, really small. So just go ahead and put 1 right there, and now we have our model. So one of the things that you right off the bat can see can be an issue with Mixamo is this right here. So this is actually the default of the weights and the way that Mixamo recognize or analyze the body of Haikun when automatically rigging it to a human skeleton. So you're gonna see some deformations like this. It's somewhat easy to fix, but it is an auto rigger, and it did a pretty good job at mapping the body of Haikun, if I do say so. So I think this will be enough. Like we did with the Ready Player Me, we're gonna check that the armature is responding well. You can see that everything is working as it should. Awesome. So what we want to do now is, like I said, since we have already prepared our model before exporting it, we can just select the new one, click, and set as active the old one. You're going to click Control L, and you can link the materials. And all you got to do is go inside of your model and reassign the models to the correct material. So the mask to the mask, the eyelids body, the eye, the eyeballs to the eyeballs, the pupils and the nose to this one. And we can see that the materials are doing all right. Let's repeat the process for this. We're gonna get our body. We're gonna go wait, I forgot to link the materials. So we have our body selected, assign the body material. Gonna select my jacket and assign the red material. The pants, this one, and the shirt to that one. And boom, we have our Haikun. So right here you can actually see one of the problems that Mixamo and Clove can have. So since the weights are automatically assigned, some deformations like this might happen. But you can see that if the avatar is walking normally, it won't show that much. It's just that since it stretches the mesh out, it can clip a little bit. So let's just now we have our materials, we have our skeleton. The only things that we have to add are our tail, which we can actually go ahead and prepare because we forgot. So the tail is gonna be like this. No, no, wait. And this one is gonna go to this one. I don't need. You know what? Leave it. Go over here. Same process that we did with the other models. Here we need to select our tail first. And by the way, it is still selected. I just toggled off the overlays so I can see the texture. So with that selected, we're gonna go ahead and scale that up so that it's matching more or less. I am going to now do the rings. And to do that, get them first. Toggle that off, select, scale up. Now we have our model almost ready. So the last thing that we need to do is first we're gonna attach our tail so that it moves with our whole rig, not statically, but with a little bit of movement at least, so that it's a little bit natural. And next thing that we're gonna do is also give a little bit of style to Haiku by adding the raw DAO. Look for it over here. So we're gonna be applying everything that we have learned in the workshop. Bucket hat, scale that down. And to do that, let me just see where the bucket hat goes better. Okay, so let's just imagine for a moment that the bucket hat has the slots for Haikun's ears. Put this here, put this here. I'd say that, yeah, this little dude is looking dapper. Ain't nobody got that drip. Okay, so I think I'm gonna actually lower it a little bit more. Just a little bit, but not that much. Oh, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. Okay, so we have that taken care of. And we are going to do the same process to attach the hat and the tail as we did for the Ready Player Me avatar. But remember the one nuance that I mentioned at the beginning, the parenting mode. So that's let's go ahead and first we're gonna attach the bucket hat. We selected our bucket hat, select our armature. We're gonna go into pose mode. We can toggle our x-rays so we can see all of our bones. And I'm gonna select the head bone, and you can confirm that by moving your head, rotating it or something. And since I already have my bucket hat selected, I can go ahead and press Control P. And when we were working with the Ready Player Me avatar, the mode that we selected was this one with automatic weights. Now, since we're working with the Mixamo one, we can just simply attach it to the bone, and we should see that everything is working fine. I do want to say a disclaimer. If you do the process with a bone parenting on the Ready Player Me avatar in Blender, you will see that the hat moves with the head. But once you upload it, import it into Unity, it won't recognize it. So that's why you gotta be wary of which armature you're working with. But right now, for the Mixamo one, the bone is more than enough. Go ahead and step out of pose mode. We're gonna select our tail, do the same process, pose mode, but now I want the tail to move in accordance with the hip bone. So what this will do is once, like each time the avatar runs or walks, that little wobble that your hips have, it's gonna be translated to the tail too. So we can see a little bit of wobble in, not just static right there. So we're gonna go ahead and parent it to the bone again. And you can see that everything is now parented to the armature. Step out of pose mode. Let's hide this other little guy. We can see once more that the total vertices that we are using is 72,000. We are a little bit high on the triangles, but it should be okay to pass. Check. Everything is under 200,000. We have less than 100 sub-meshes, which are the materials on the individual bodies. And Haikun definitely is not more than 25 meters tall. So, and we have our humanoid rig thanks to Mixamo. So we should be able to now upload our FBX up to Unity. So let's go ahead and do that. Everything is selected, and just to make sure that you're not missing anything, you can also select it from the tree over here. So make sure that this is the armature you're working with. If you drop down the little arrow, you can see the different pieces of the avatar that are tied to the armature. And you can just go ahead and right click on the armature and select hierarchy, and it'll select everything that has to do with the avatar. So once you do that, let's go ahead and export as an FBX. Same process. The path mode is going to be set to copy. Hit that little box so it turns blue. We have selected everything that we want, so selected objects only. And the armature and the mesh are the only things that we want. Transforms, you can leave them as is. In the geometry section, change the smoothing to face. Sorry. And the armature and the big animation tabs, you can leave them as is because we have made sure that we do not export any types of animations from Mixamo by deleting any that we may have clicked. So once you have all of that, make sure you know where you are saving your avatar and give it a proper name. So this is going to be Haikun RAW. RAW. And we're gonna specify that this is a Unity ready asset. I'm gonna hit enter and export. Boom, there we go. Now we can head over to our avatar build inside of Unity. Remember that I already had this opened up from the first part of the workshop. I'm gonna go ahead and hide my other custom avatar and create a new folder, which is gonna be Haikun with RAW. We're gonna go inside the folder. We're gonna go look for our FBX, which we named Haikun RAW Unity. And this is actually the importance of naming and specifying a lot of your models. Since they're all 3D objects, the only way to actually know if it's an FBX or an object file or a GOB file is to go manually, and not even that, like you gotta go into the properties themselves. So to save a little bit of time, I just say, okay, this is the Unity one that I prepared. This is the Mixamo one that I prepared. And I just know for sure that those are the ones that object, that one's the FBX. Just a little tip. So we can see we have our model already here. We're gonna go ahead over to our inspector. We are gonna specify that the rig is humanoid. We're gonna leave it as create with this model and apply. No errors, and now we're gonna go over to configure to do a last check that everything is working as it should. We're gonna go over to our rotate tools over here. There we go. Some exotic movements from that neck, but we can see that the hat is properly parented, as well as the tail. Awesome. So go ahead and click undo, Control Z, to not do any permanent damage on this. To go outside of this window, click done and click revert so no changes can be applied. And now go over to your material settings. We're gonna extract our textures. Fix now because this is the only texture that we actually have. And no, we actually have the bucket hat one too. We'll get that one manually and extract our materials. And we have all of our materials here. Now we can go ahead and drag our Haikun 3D model into our hierarchy. There it is, looking dapper as can be. All textures have been applied, and all the textures have been applied because, as we remember from the first part, you first got to, before adding the model to the scene, you gotta extract your textures and then extract your materials. Once you have all of those dependencies accounted for, you can go ahead and launch your model into the scene. If in the off chance that after that you still have not you still don't have your textures applied automatically, you'll have to apply them manually, as we're going to do with the bucket hat now. So the bucket hat, we can see that it has a material but it lacks the texture. So to do that, we can simply look for the texture that's called stripe pattern right here, drag and drop it, and this will be the base map for the color. So you can just drag the picture and drag it into this little box for base map. And I think I got the wrong material because I got the material for the shirt. So to make sure that you have the material for your hat, click it until it's outlined red, drop down the material, drag the picture, and boom! Now we have our bucket hat properly textured. So that's one way to manually add your materials to your own to your avatars. Now that we have the materials all taken care of, I'm happy with how it looks. We can click the high level object that defines our avatar. And you can know that it's a high level one because everything about the avatar will be parented under it. And another telltale sign is that the model will be outlined blue. So that's how you know that you have selected the level object. So we're going to go ahead and click on add a component to our top level object. And once you type in spatial, you can see all of the different components. But the one that we're going to use is the app spatial avatar one. Here you can set the default animation type, any other overrides that you want to do to the default running clip or the seating clip. So this is if you want your avatar, for example, if you want him to ideally be standing and dancing at the same time, this is where you would put in the idle animation clip, you will put an override and put any of the Mixamo animations. So you could have your avatar be idle, and instead of just standing still, it could be doing the capoeira dance kind of thing, like be squaring up to anybody capoeira. But that's something we can do for another time. For now, we can leave everything as default. We have the custom avatar component set up. And to create the prefab object that is going to be uploaded into spatial, we can just drag the object from the hierarchy into our folder. You will see this little pop-up window. You're just gonna click on create a prefab variant, and there we have it. So one way to differentiate the variant and the original one is that the original one will have this little arrow right here defining everything that's inside of the object. And the prefab, it's going to be like all of those things grouped together into this instance. So now that we have this, we can head over to our spatial portal. We are going to create a new avatar. So we can specify that we're going to create a new avatar. Click create, change the default name to Tycoon RAW. And in this prefab field, we're gonna drag and drop what we created. And you can see that it automatically recognized it. Like I said, this is not an optimized model to use as a global avatar. And if you even try to test it as a global avatar, it'll quickly tell you that you have an error. Like you have too many vertices, too many triangles, too many submeshes. So it'll obligate you, it'll force you to choose ecosystem. And once you do that, you can see that the only error that you have is that you don't have a thumbnail. And as we already saw on the first part, to actually test this, we don't need it. So let's go ahead and test it by clicking test active package. Remember to
tutorial de
have
3D.
remember to have the window that you are using your avatar
Bien.
open. And just wait for the sandbox to reload. We should soon see a Tycoon avatar ready to party raw DAO style, everybody. Look how the little tail waggles and everything. So that's the movement that I was referring to, that it'll translate from the hip bone over to the tail. We can see we have almost no clipping. We have a little bit over here if we have like a large amount of information in the arms. But I would like to say that this is a pretty successful avatar upload. Also, notice that and this is because of the nature of the body of Tycoon himself. The little legs, when you deform them too much, it'll start to like bend really weird. That's something that you can fix later on. Fixing the weights, going into Blender a little bit more in depth. That's a whole rabbit hole for another time. But it is done. You can upload this to Spatial and you can use it in any of your own environments since it's only an ecosystem. But I have seen that if you are made a host of a space, the ecosystem avatars are made available for you. So it actually comes down to the point that if you're a host, you can use your ecosystem. So to finish this up, we are going to go ahead and jump into Blender again. We're gonna do the same process to get the thumbnail that we did for the Ready Player Me avatar. We're gonna align our camera real quick. A second. So like I mentioned before, we have to have a 256 by 256 thumbnail. And actually go a little bit closer right there. And we have to have it transparent. So to do that in Blender, you can go to your render properties while using your Eevee render engine and film, click transparent. And then in your output properties, remember to have file format as a PNG, and the RGBA selected so that you can have your alpha channels exported as well. Go ahead and click render. Oh, wait, I have a little stowaway. There we go. So you can confirm that it's a transparent picture from the checkered background. So go ahead and click on image, save your photo. This is icon right now. And close this. Same process that we did with the other one. Drag and drop it. The transparency is not applied on import, so you do gotta select your picture, and in the inspector window, specify that the alpha is transparency and apply it. And once you do, you'll see the checker background over here too. So we're gonna go over to our spatial portal. We are going to drag the thumbnail over here, and I actually gotta do something really quick. Sorry for the multiple windows, but I do want to publish this one on the official iCreator account. So let me just change this real quick. Paste token. I got my name, I got the prefab, it's an ecosystem avatar, an animal category, and I got the thumbnail. So we can go ahead and publish this, and we shouldn't have any errors. Click continue, and it's uploading. So while that uploads, you have already created a fully custom avatar with the raw DAO bucket hat, and we have even attached scale as part of the skeleton to the avatar. So that actually concludes the last part. If you guys have any questions, I actually want to go ahead and I actually gotta, I'll be right back because I want to join. I forgot I launched this with my personal account, so I'll join and show you guys the other custom avatar that we launched at the first one. In the first one. So just give me a second. I do hope that there's no feedback. Give it a sec. There we go. And this. So sorry if I caused any feedback on the recording, but I think that you got to see how the other avatar published with the bucket hat and everything, and if not, I'll share a picture later. Or actually, no, I think I may have it. I have it here. I have it here. Look at it. Aha. So this is what your published avatar will finally look like once it finishes. But yeah, I hope that everybody uh, was able to understand the workshop. I hope that I've cleared any. How do you change your avatar while in the space? So you can only do it if you're on the computer. If you are on a mobile phone or tablet, you have to first go into your computer, set the avatar that you want, reset the app in your device, and you should spawn like the last avatar that you changed. But if you're on your computer, you can just go ahead and click on your PFP over here right down by the chat, edit avatar, and there you will see all of the custom avatars that you have launched, as well as the Ready Player Me ones on the top. So we do gotta make sure that if you're gonna be using an avatar that you have launched as a ecosystem avatar, you have to be the host or the owner of the space to use it. If not, the only avatars that you're going to be able to see here are the global ones. So actually, let me just go ahead and check again. This is the official workflows. Can we use that customized avatar if we are host of an event here in Spatial, or is there any limitation? Yeah, so like it's similar to what Mokaso asked, but yeah, you can use your customized avatars anywhere in Spatial, given that they are global. If they are set up to be a global avatar, it can be used in any space. If not, you have to be the host or the owner to use avatars that are a little more detailed or high volume. But yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how long the workshop was, but I just wanna thank everybody that has joined either in the spatial space, the live streams that they were doing, and anybody that's listening to the recording at a later time. And if you made it all the way to the end, thank you, and I do appreciate the space. And for sure, Pedro, like this is only the beginning. I am sure that Mocaso, Tiny, and us will be doing a lot more of tutorials, a lot more of content in the future. Awesome, awesome. I'm so glad that you guys enjoyed it. Thanks. Y de nada, o sea, por si acaso, Pedro, vi tu nombre desde que entraste y pensé en preguntarte si hablabas español o no, pero I kind of figured. Pero de nada. Ah, en serio, pero me sigue. Ah, no, sigues a THC. Super, aquí estoy con mi. I'm here with my partner looking at your Instagram profile. I'm seeing some pretty cool things, so we should definitely link up. For sure, Philly also. And for anybody that actually has any questions, or you might want some more in depth help, don't hesitate to reach out to the High Creators THC Group PR in Twitter. We are more than we're more than willing to help you out in anything that you need. Be sure to catch Haikun. Hey, Mocaso, I see you. Let's go. Okay, so let me see if I can help you real quick. But yeah, anybody that wants to get this little guy in their wallet, the mint is happening now. And to actually get the link today only, you can get it through our website.
Yes, and definitely plug the project because I'm excited for the haiku, for the reveal. Definitely make sure you guys have yours also. And we definitely have a lot more in store. So for my avatar, I've gotten here and I even had to go and I was trying to like rewatch the beginning and watch where you were now so I could try to catch up. But I cannot find the bone under my head like for the armature part. That's where I cannot figure out. I think like where you say you're supposed to press the button to be able to look at it in x-ray mode and then get that bone. I don't think I know where x-ray mode is. And so that's kind of what maybe why I'm not seeing the bone, or maybe it's because it's under my hat, but that's where I'm kind of stuck at. Oh, okay. Do I let go of shift or do I keep holding shift? Okay. You said control what? Oh, right. Copy, copy. What? Which ones did you say? You said the head, right? So I would click on this and then hit the minus sign. Okay, so like how I have it now, like how I have head selected now, like I would grab that and then okay. Yeah, I still haven't used Unity before. So this is my first time ever really using it as well. So that can load, and then I can kind of follow the video, from there. And then if I have any questions, reach out. But I think just you answering those few questions where I got stuck helped me, and I know will also definitely help anybody that may have gotten stuck and needs that part slowed down again. Oh, okay, definitely. Yeah, I haven't done anything with the connecting to spatial with Unity. That's exactly what I was about to have to start next with, even trying to see what I have to do to use Unity and connect it to spatial and those different things of that nature. So that's about to be my next project. But as soon as I have my avatar in the space, I'm gonna send you a picture, and I'm super excited. She's halfway there. And then, like you said, once you get it down one time, I'm like, I've got it from here. So I'm excited to keep learning. Like you said, we definitely are going to do more of this. And everybody, make sure you go mint your own haiku. Okay, make sure you do not sleep. Get your haiku because it's going down. They are all about learning. Raw is all about learning, and we're just getting started. So, was there anything else that you wanted to say before we wrap up this live stream and recording? Awesome. Well, we appreciate you for. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Yep. So I was just gonna say we appreciate you for being a part of this workshop, showing us what you know. We're all about showing people, what you do know is more than someone else, and that is helpful just in you showing your way and getting stuff done. So we definitely appreciate you for not only taking the time to do this once, but taking the time to do it twice, and still wanting to continue to do it more from here. So everybody watching, like I said, you'll definitely see more. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. I did see a few people in the chat on Twitter and on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great night. Make sure you take your pictures too of your avatar if you get your bucket hat in there, and let us know if this workshop was helpful. Peace.